Excuse me. Dr. Johnson unfortunately will not be able to be with us tonight, so I will be running the meeting. Good evening. It is 6:30 on September 26, 2022, and we now call the Winton Woods Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Birdie?
Present.
Ms. Bryant?
Present.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Thank you. We do have a recess on the agenda, and if no one objects, we'll just go ahead.
Flag. Pledge.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Pledge of Allegiance. Let's do that, please. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's why we're a team. And again, seeing as we really don't need to have a recess, if no one objects, we will go straight to public comments. And we do have one person who's requested to speak to the audience. Ms. Booker, would you please, if you can go up to the podium so we can hear you. I want to make sure Waycross hears you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Helen Booker, and I am a resident of Green Hills, and I have two grandsons that go to the school system here. And I was just wondering, because I have not heard, if any of the faculty or teachers are authorized to carry weapons, namely guns, in this environment that we're presently in.
Okay, you can stay here, so you can comment if you want. But we've actually, the past few meetings, we've had that conversation. And the other thing that we want to do, we want to make sure we do it with fidelity. We're in conversation with law enforcement on a regular basis about that plan. Some districts think they're ready for that. We are not, because of the consequences associated with it.
Okay.
A heavy temper could create a lot of problems.
Absolutely.
So we want to be very patient about it and still have conversations with law enforcement. And if we ever get to that point, we will let the public know, but we're going to announce it just so we can do it right. We're going to announce it every month. That is not our charge at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent question, by the way.
All right. With no other public comments, we will move on to Winton Woods Teachers Association. Do we have a representative from the Winton Woods Teachers Association who would like to speak?
Excuse me, Mr. Birdie.
Yes, sir.
You guys have forms. Did you have something?
I asked if anybody had anybody else. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Next, we'll move on to the Ohio Association of Public Employees representative. Do we have anybody here from OPSI who would like to speak? Okay. Seeing no one here from that, we will move on to agenda item 5.01, which is to approve the minutes as presented. Board, we'll need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to present, or to approve the minutes as presented.
Need a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I do have a question. I'm not sure if I can vote on this since I missed the 8/22 regular board meeting.
Randy, how would you like us to?
She can abstain from that one if she wishes.
Okay.
Are we going to vote on them individually?
I will just put that you're abstaining on 8/22.
Okay, thank you.
And we have enough to make it a quorum, though, on the other?
Yeah, we just,
Yes.
we just need the three.
Okay. And then with that, Randy, just so that you know, I wasn't present at the special meeting and the other. So if you want to say my
Which ones are you abstaining from?
The 9/12 and 9/19, I was out of town.
Okay.
And I was out for COVID for August 29th.
Okay. Is that how you want me to list them?
Yeah, if you,
Okay,
if you would, that would be
sure.
great. Seeing no other questions, Mr. Seymour?
So that I have it correct, Ms. Bryant's abstaining from 8/22,
I'll second.
Mr. Birdie from 8/29, and Mrs. Kuhn from 9/12 and 9/19.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant,
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
We will move on to agenda item 6.01, Mr. Seymour, Treasurer's Report for the financial statements for August of 2022.
Yes, you have the statements before you for all funds. The general fund, year-to-date revenues are at 15.8 million, with our month-to-date revenues at 13.9 million. The month-to-date revenues are very high because we received our real estate tax advances from Hamilton County. The year-to-date expenditures for the general fund are right at 8.0 million. And the balance in all of our district funds is at 39.1 million. And on page 5, you have a list of each fund balance and how much each one has. It comes up to that 39.1 million.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Any questions from Mr. Seymour? Okay, with no objections being heard, let the financial statements for the month of August 2022 be submitted for audit. With that, we will move on to 7.01, which is investments. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Our investments for the month of August were at $62,489. The general fund had $52,730, and our building fund had $9,759 for the month of August.
So we are seeing some improvement based on interest rates going up as far as the income.
Basically, we had some investments come due.
Okay.
Yeah, some CDs mature and things during that month for the general fund.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. A board motion is in order to approve the investment report.
I'd like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the investment report as presented.
I second it.
Is that you?
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the resolution for permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2023. Mr. Seymour, you still have the floor.
If you'll indulge me, I'm going to do a short presentation of this year's appropriations or we're going to approve the fiscal year 2023 appropriations tonight, and that includes all funds. Basically, we have them categorized by capital project funds at 4.2 million, enterprise funds at 3.4 million, debt service funds at 3.2 million, and special revenue funds at 9.8 million, and then, of course, our general fund at 56.2 million. Our enterprise funds, of course, our general fund makes up almost 75% of our budget. Debt service funds are exactly what they say. They are our debt paying off our debt. Special revenue funds come from state and federal for a specific purpose. And then, of course, our capital project funds include our building fund and our permanent improvement funds. And we'll have a total appropriations for the year of $77,211,000. Some of the, when I spoke of the special revenue funds, some of the major funds are our athletic, band, and music for approximately $200,000. Auxiliary services, which is our private schools in the district, John Paul, $449,000. Elementary and secondary emergency relief, or as a lot of people refer to it as ESSER, 1.6 million. And then, of course, we have the American Recovery Plan, which is at 3.3 million. We have IDEA, special education, approximately $1 million. We have Title I for social economic education at 1.4 million, school quality improvement at 430,000, and then Title IIA teacher quality at 173,000. Our major special revenue funds, of course, as I mentioned, is permanent improvement at 1.4 million. Our building funds are at 2.6 million, and food service is at 3.5 million. Of course, the general fund is the main fund where the board has all the discretion. All the other funds are specific purpose, generated for a specific purpose, and received to us from state, federal, or locals for only the purpose which it was intended. So whenever we talk about levies or needing additional revenues, it's always the general fund that generates the revenue for all of our personnel, all of our benefits, and running our most of our day-to-day K through 12 education, pre-K through 12. We get most of our receipts, as you can see, 52% of that comes from local taxes. Our state foundation is still only at 40%, and then a small percent makes up our investments, other local sources, and other state sources. Our total district taxable valuation right now is at $556 million, and you can see we've just barely recovered from back where we were in 2011. We've barely just recovered from the recession and the housing when all the reduced values went through, and now we finally have caught back up to where we were back in 2011 for the district's total appraised valuation. Our total district value is $566 million. We have voted millage of 92.85 mils, but residential's effective millage, that's after it's reduced by the growth of which I just shared with you, our growth in our real estate. Our general fund effective millage is at 44.21 mils. Permanent improvement is 1.5, and bond retirement is at 5.92. I will mention that when we first sold our bonds, our mills for our bond service was at 6.95. So through our growth in our real estate, we have been able to reduce the millage assessed to each individual resident, and also we refinanced some of the bonds to reduce that millage. Your permanent improvement was voted for 2 mills, and with the growth in the value within the district, it has been reduced by what's known as the reduction factor to 1.5 mils. So our total real estate taxes that are going to be generated for this year are $27 million, of which $2.7 million will come from what rollback and homestead exemption, which is the portion that the state pays for the resident of 12.5% for their main residence. We are going to receive state funding, and as you know, we're under a new funding formula, the My Fair plan from the state of Ohio, also known as Cutt-Patterson funding. Our unrestricted state, which is what we have discretion in spending, how we decide, is $16 million. We now have disadvantaged pupil impact aid, which must be service our disadvantaged youth, of $1 million. We have gifted at 161, and that must fund what we would think our gifted students. We have English learners of 444,000, which must fund our ESL. What's it called now? It's not called ESL now. What's it? English learners? Okay. We have student wellness and success of 595,000. And then, of course, transportation at 1.9 million. Special ed transportation at 300,000, and preschool at 471,000. And everything except the unrestricted must be spent as it is outlined there. And now we file reports showing how we spent those funds for the state of Ohio. Other local receipts, we still have tuition of 1.1 million. That's mostly children placed in our district through foster care system. rental of facilities of $230,000, revenue in lieu of taxes, which are TIFs, tax incremental financing arrangements through Forest Park, Green Hills, and Springfield Township. But most of those have been reduced down and have phased out at this time. And then we have some other local receipts of $447,000. We have some other smaller state receipts and federal funds. We do get $550,000 for Medicaid reimbursement. We do what's catastrophic aid, which is aid for special ed children that are highly expensive to the district, and we file all the expenditures associated with a child, and then the state funds part of that. After it exceeds $36,000 for the child, we get partial reimbursement for those children. We also have E-rate for some of our technology needs. And then, of course, the casino proceeds, which were supposed to be the answer to all school revenue issues, and we get $240,000. And how do we spend those dollars? This district spends 70% right in the classroom, right within the classroom. Extracurricular activities, a small portion of $1 million. And then operations, which is custodial, maintenance, transportation, and administration. For this year, we're estimating salaries to be around $32 million. Our benefits close to $12 million. Purchase services, which is all of our contracts, our utilities, and tuition for various special ed programs at $9 million. Supplies and materials for instruction at $1.7 million. Equipment, $232,000, and then other is $815,000. And in that other, most of that is charges from the Hamilton County Auditor for real estate collection and also our liability insurance. Just to share with you, last year we appropriated or budgeted $54 million. Our actual expenditures for the year were right at $51 million, and we ended the year with a $3.3 million savings, or an appropriated savings of approximately 6%. So our total expenditures for the year, as you can see, are comprised mostly of salaries, benefits, and contracts. When you want to do any kind of reductions within the district, you almost have to look at salaries, benefits, and some of your contracts. Supplies, equipment, a very small portion of our budget. In the appropriations, we have all the negotiated salary adjustments, any staffing reallocations that were done, and also healthcare is projected at 7.3% increase for this coming year. So we started with $16.7 million. Our total receipts are at $51.3 million. Our estimated expenditures are at $55.9 million, and with an ending cash balance this year of approximately $12 million, which will expend approximately $4 million of our cash reserves. And basically, that's a summary of the appropriations that you're going to adopt. Unless you have any questions.
Can you explain a little bit about enterprise?
Do we want to do
Do
the
we need a
motion
motion?
first?
Oh,
and then the
I'm so
questions?
sorry.
And
No,
then
no,
do
no,
the-
you're-
No, it's okay. I would have done it too. If we could have a motion on the floor to approve the appropriations as presented.
I motion to approve the appropriations as presented.
Thank you. Second, someone?
I'll say it.
Okay. Now,
Now,
Deborah,
questions.
go ahead.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more about enterprise funds?
Yes, lunchroom.
Okay.
Yes, they call them enterprise funds because they are totally separate from all of our state, local, and because they generate their own revenue to fund their own expenditures.
Thank you.
And your lunchroom does fine. Many school districts have to transfer from the general fund to the lunchroom fund, since I don't think this district's ever had to.
And it does cover the meals in the summer programs and
Right.
such. That's good.
Nutrition is an issue.
nutrition is the mission. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Thank you.
Vote passes. Now we will move on to agenda item 8.01, which is school reports. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, for acting president and board members, one of the things that parents have often said, as we talk about busing and we talk about food service and we talk about all these other things that go along with the school, one of the major issues is how are kids doing academically. Parents want to know, how's my child doing? So parents should have received notification about a midterm. The midterm families that are paying attention or they're listening on Waycross, that is your guide to determine how well your kid is doing, how well your child is doing. It is a very important piece. Some districts don't give that information out until 10 weeks. It's already too late. We give out one in the middle, like a 5-week interval, and then there's another one at 10 that's the final. So if your child is doing extremely well, keep encouraging them. And if they are struggling, they need to get with the teacher. And parents, you need to call the teachers to say, my child needs some assistance. There is no sense for us to wait late. So there's something put in place for your child to be productive and so that the academics can work for you. In the school report section, that's the most important part today. How is my child doing academically? So again, for parents that are listening, if they don't have the grades that you believe they should have, and also the other thing that I need you to be very, very aware of, what is their attendance like? So if you're sending them every day, and there are some gaps in there are some attendance issues, there are some late, there are some tardies, you need to notify the teachers and counselors immediately so that your child can get credit for being in school every day. All right?
I have a question. Is there also the access online for parents to look at their grades? It used to be progress book, and then it was,
Absolutely. They can look at everything. They can look at assignments. They can look at future assignments just to see what's my young person going to be faced with so that we can make sure that they're properly prepared. And if they notice that there are some problems, I don't know a teacher in our district that would refuse to give kids assistance. But they don't know if they don't inquire.
right, and obviously that's online, and we have that program, the Spectrum program that's offered to our students as well, that hopefully our families are taking advantage of. Do we have an idea of how well?
What's our number, Ms. Hobbs?
We're over 200.
Okay.
And we have many more spots available.
We have probably 700 slots where it's free internet access for the entire school year. Parents don't pay anything. And,
Yeah.
say it again? Oh, it's so that when we send a Chromebook home, and some parents are saying, well, I don't have technology to go with the Chromebook. So we have a deal with Spectrum, and they're saying, listen, we will take care of the entire bill. Something that Ms. Hobbs has been working on for a while, and we just want parents to take advantage of it. And there's no back cost, there's nobody that's gonna come and talk to you later saying you owe us money. But we have 700 slots that we're not able to fill. And I can tell you, if we don't fill the slots, if you're Spectrum, what would you do? You would offer it to someone else. And we don't want that, to happen. We would like it to be so competitive on our end that at the end of our term, when Spectrum looks at it, we said we had 700 or 900 and we had another 400 on the waiting list, which means we get somebody else's services. So that's what we'd like for parents to take advantage of. But Ms. Kuhn, you made a good point. How do I see access to my child's academic performance if I don't have it? Well, we have put everything in a nice, neat package for you to take advantage of.
That's why I thought it was important that our district has that at their disposal, because it's really important to have that interaction. If you can't get into the classes, at least you can access it online and see how your student's performing without, even, the midterms are nice, but it's kind of nice to know week over week before it gets too far.
And that's the whole objective. There's been so many parents that have said, that midterm helped me evaluate my child, because they should be evaluating their children at home. How am I working through all the projects and some of the other demands that the teacher has for me?
Yeah, that was something I did. My son will testify that. I was
I'm
very
sure.
in tune to what he had to do.
I was like, I remember that.
And where
I'm
do-
sure
where-
all of Alex's midterms were posted, though, on the refrigerator, as usual.
He still got in trouble with someone done.
I was going to say, there probably wasn't too many
No.
reasons for you to be checking. But where do they go, or who do they contact, or where do they find the information on how to apply for that Spectrum?
I was gonna say wintonwoods.org, and the
So wintonwoods.org and the back to school section on the webpage.
We're
Okay,
shameless
great.
promoters, so just FYI.
Just want to make sure it was out there. So
Right,
that-
and I
Yeah.
agree. If 200
Yeah.
have figured it out, 900 should.
Right. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Smith?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to 8.02, the facilities update. Would that be you or Mr. Denny?
Mr. Denny?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. So just a quick update on several things that are happening in the district right now with regard to facilities and some of our moving parts. We still have the demolition project winding down, I should say, at former Primary South on Lake Ridge Drive and also the old elementary school or Winton Forest on Kingsbury Drive. And I'd say those are probably about 95% completed. We're waiting on some information to do the final site walk. So hopefully that's coming up soon. We can put those in the rearview mirror. The exciting news is the demolition work at the intermediate school, the former intermediate or the current future ECC. The renovation project is coming along nicely. So we are, per the site foreman, the construction superintendent last week, he said he was about 33% with the demolition phase of the project. Of course, we still have the HVAC portion of work coming, including the electric switchgear, windows, window frames, doors, door frames, some building envelope work. So we are probably about 10% through the entirety of phase one, the portion that the board's approved to date. Phase two will be sometime next year. So we're prepping for that still and doing design work and things of that nature. But the demolition's coming along nicely.
Yeah, I'm sure the board would want to know one major thing as it relates to the budget. Are we?
Well, we're on budget right now.
Okay.
But we have some change orders coming. You knew I was going to say that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith and I have talked about this. So when you take a project that was supposed to be done in, I think we were looking at like an 8-month completion time frame, and because your switchgear is 56 weeks delayed, well, now you're looking at a 18-month or so time frame. So instead of having to pay the construction management services to be there for 8 months, we now have to pay for 18. So there will be a change order coming for extension of contract and this, construction management time. And there'll be other ancillary expenses tied to the fact that the schedule's being stretched. The trinity of project management is cost, scope, and schedule, right? So if you modify any one of those three, you increase the scope, you pay more. It takes longer on the schedule. If you modify any of those three things, we're gonna see increased cost or increased schedule or both. And in this case, we're not changing the scope, but the schedule's changing, and so that's driving cost.
Right, and I think one of the main things that the public needs to really embrace is we were able to bring 2 major buildings out of the ground during the pandemic. That's unheard of, especially when you start talking about supplies and demands of supplies, because everybody was being pushed back. So when you see the news and you see these big crates still at the harbor and still at port, there are materials in those crates that can get to the right place. We're waiting for a switchgear, and we're talking about 52 weeks for an item that will power up the entire system.
Yes,
So
sir.
without the switchgear, that system can't work. So we wanted to be very transparent with the public to let them know what the delays may be, because, as you see different people working on the buildings, people keep wondering, like, why isn't it done? Why isn't it done? And I think that's a good question that the public needs to ask. But we have an answer that's very transparent that says it's not done because the product is not here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else?
Okay.
Mr. Denny?
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Denny.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is 9.01, the job description for the high school guidance secretary.
Ms. Wilson?
Good evening. Before you, you have the job description for the high school guidance secretary. It's just been updated to reflect some more modern language and also to include some of the ADA and equal opportunity employment language. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Want to get a motion on the floor to approve the high school guidance? Secretary?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the job description for high school guidance secretary as presented.
Second the motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. What questions do we have for Ms. Wilson? Any? All right, no questions. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. All right. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Next on the agenda is 9.02 personnel schedules. Mr. Smith or Ms. Wilson?
Okay. Well, before you, you have Schedules A. I'm sorry, 1 minute. A, resignations. B, employment of certificated staff. C, employment of support staff. D, supplementals. E, leaves. And M, terminations.
Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel schedules as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I was just curious about the resignations, and there were several in food service. I didn't know if it was a specific, anything specifically that.
There is a specific, Ms.
Okay.
Wilson.
Yeah, so we hired several older employees.
Seasoned employees.
Seasoned.
Experienced.
Yes, experience, very well.
Mature. And they complained that the job was too physical and the concrete was an issue for them. So that's.
Standing on the concrete, you mean?
Mhm.
Okay.
So that was,
Did we put anything in the new, requirements to put that into when we hire people, that's known to them,
that there's concrete,
well, or
The
that
job
that-
description
The
just-
job description
Yeah.
would indicate that being
physical
Yeah.
requirement.
Mhm.
Yeah, it lays out the physical demands, but reading about it and living it are two different things. So,
that's true.
yeah, so that was the feedback they gave me.
Okay.
It was just too much.
Well, that's good to know, so when we rehire, because the cost of hiring and letting and rehiring is a great cost, and time-wise from your perspective, so.
Any other discussion? Very good. Okay, Mr. Seymour, would you call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. That passes. Move on to 9.03 supplemental salary schedule.
Yes, sir. So there are a lot of conversations in the public, and it's really competitive from district to district about what you can offer and what you offer young people. And it's not just about the math and the science and the history and reading. Young people want to be involved in other activities. The more activities you have, the more it costs. That's just the way that it is. So today, the recommendation is to approve the supplemental salary schedule. And the salary schedule goes in various groups. It goes from group 1 to group 8, from football to basketball to cheerleading to track to all of the other amenities that young people like to participate in. And again, as I stated before, when you have all these opportunities, there has to be coaching, good coaching, to help the kids move forward and stay active academically. So the supplemental salary schedule is a big part of who we are and what we do.
All right. Board, I'll need a motion to approve the salary schedule, supplemental salary schedule as presented.
I'll make go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the supplemental salary schedule as presented.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion or questions from Mr. Smith?
Well, I want to say I support the fact that our district realizes and offers a comprehensive program for our students, in addition to the education, which is the primary reason why we're here. But all of these other pieces fit together that augment it and make the student a more rounded student. It teaches a lot of soft skills, teaches the things that we need to learn as human beings as we grow and get our jobs in life. They teach a lot of valuable lessons, plus they have extra mentoring opportunities that the staff, they have different teachers, different adults that can help mentor and guide them. And I think those are all real important pieces of what a school district can offer. And I think, and it goes all the way down to middle school, so it's not like it only starts in high school. So I want our district to understand, these aren't just frivolous, meaningless monies that are spent. They're spent on behalf of our children in our community. They keep them busy after school. It keeps them engaged in a positive way. So there's a direct correlation to the benefit to our community and the desirability to live in our community as well. So I think that's a really important piece, and I appreciate the district acknowledging and recognizing that.
And the other important thing is the opportunities that it provides for our students. I think I heard Mayan Williams, who's playing for Ohio State, mentioned on ESPN on Sunday, who's a Winton Woods graduate. So I think it provides them opportunities to get an education and further their education.
And the other part that I think is so telling is the scholarship opportunities where young people get higher educational experience for free.
Right.
Because they have talent, and not just for athletics, but our music kids actually soar well above a lot of children when they go on to higher ed. So that's why those programs are so important to keep intact.
Right, and even if it doesn't translate to scholarships, learning music has correlation to math and science skills. So a lot of these programs relate directly to academics, and students that tend to be engaged do better in school as well. So there's tons of studies that show the reason why you want your child engaged.
And you find a great social group to be part of.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's really important. So, thank you.
I like to piggyback on that and think about when you think of, I'm gonna borrow Brandon's phrase of school district of excellence. So when you think of an excellent school districts offer a variety of extracurricular activities. And I don't even like the term extra because as a former band person, track person, wrestlette, those things, Key Club guided me and helped me grow confidence for every phase of my adult life. So these things are so valuable for our students. I'm extremely excited that they have them. When my kids were here, they didn't have lacrosse. So now that we're able to compete with other schools in the area with lacrosse, we have an excellent music program. And to your point, we're the best. So to continue to be a school district of excellence, we have to continue to offer these type of opportunities for our students.
Ms. Bryan, you were speaking so passionately about it. Did I hear you say you were a wrestler?
I was a wrestlette.
Okay.
Yes, no.
Just checking.
I ran track, wrestlette, band, no.
I heard wrestlette. I heard wrestlette.
I know what wrestlette is.
Just so the public can have a better description, can you describe a wrestlette?
So way back in the day, I won't tell you the year, before the 2000s, we had wrestlettes in the school district that I went to, in a lot of school districts, and we helped score when wrestlers were wrestling.
Okay.
And we also cheered.
All right, very
So
good.
yes.
Very good. That's powerful. That's very powerful. Okay.
All right, any other comments or questions? Mr. Seymour, would you call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is 9.04, which is the resolution for National Principals Month, October of 2022. I believe, Mrs. Kuhn, are you going to read that for us?
Sure, should I make a motion first prior to reading it, or what pattern would you
It's only
like,
a
or do you have a
proclamation.
suggestion? Just read it first. Pardon?
Yeah.
Okay,
You can
I'll
go
read
ahead and
it. I shall read it. Okay. Proclamation National Principals Month, October 2022. Whereas each year, the month of October is designated National Principals Month in recognition of principals, assistant principals, and other school administrators for their steadfast commitment to ensuring that every child receives a quality education. And whereas principals and assistant principals are responsible for the day-to-day operation of their school, which includes leading the instructional program, acting as disciplinarians, managing educational initiatives, and building relationships with students, teachers, parents, community partners, and others to achieve excellence. And whereas principals and assistant principals work diligently to establish a positive tone for their school and provide a supportive and safe school environment where students learn, grow, and thrive. And whereas we are proud of our principals and assistant principals and sincerely appreciate their ongoing efforts to inspire success and a lifetime of learning in Winton Woods City Schools, and also to promote the importance and value of public school education in this community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Winton Woods City School District is pleased to join other boards of education across the United States in proclaiming October 2022 as National Principals Month and encourages the citizens of the Winton Woods City School District to join in the celebration of National Principals Month by thanking all of their school administrators for the care and concern they show all of our children. Adopted this day, the 26th of September, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuhn. We'll need a motion to approve the resolution.
Make a motion to approve the resolution, National Principals Month, October 22, as presented.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
Deborah seconded. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion or comments?
Yes, Mr. Birdie, we say that October is National Principals Month, but when you look at the dedication and the work that the principals put in, it really should be every month, because they are very committed to the work every single day. They take care of the children to make sure that things go right. So at least for the month of October, no harassing calls to principals, just for 1 month, all right? They would appreciate it. If you just gave them a break just 1 month, I'm sure they would just love you for it. But when you really look at what a principal does in the school, their job goes beyond the scope of, evaluating teachers and helping young people get their shoes tied and other things. They go the full gamut, and they are some of the most committed people that I've ever met in this particular district. So we're going to do something very special for them. We're going to put on a special luncheon, and it was voted by the administrative team. It was going to be an option. I was going to have all the executive team cover the principal for the day, and they go into the classrooms and the buildings, and my team voted that down. They're like, no, that's a bit too much. So we're going to do something a little bit more accessible. We're going to have a principal's great day, great luncheon, but we're going to do that the day that the kids are not here. Okay, so we're not going to try to, do both at the same time, because when the principal away, what do the young people do? You already know. Yes, ma'am. So I just wanted people, and the other thing is, board, you're invited to that activity, so you can celebrate with them in person. Okay?
You know the date.
Ms. Dr. Martin?
Thank
October
you.
17th.
Or families can write their principals and assistant principals a thank you note or say thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to read those notes first before you send those off to my people. I'd like to kind of proof them a little bit.
Is it going to be all the principals at one time?
All of them.
And where will it be? North Campus, okay. Thank you.
It's right above the gym, right up,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Great.
They would love to see the board.
Thank
They
you.
would love to see other people come out and just celebrate with them.
Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Ms. Bryant,
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Vote passes. We will move on to 9.05, which is a resolution for the National School Bus Safety Week, October 17th to the 21st, 2022. Ms. Bryant, would you please read?
Proclamation, National School Bus Safety Week, October 17th to 21st, 2022. Whereas the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education recognizes the critical and important role that bus drivers are entrusted with on a daily basis. And whereas the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education commends the dedication of these drivers who provide safe transportation for the students and staff of our district. And whereas the bus drivers demonstrate a positive role model to reinforce the importance of education, support for family, schools, and community. And whereas the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education, as a stakeholder in the educational development of these children, expresses its appreciation and support for the drivers and the staff of the Winton Woods Transportation Department. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education proclaims the week of October 17th through the 21st, 2022, to be a week of sincere appreciation for the important role of the staff of the Transportation Department of our school district.
Thank you. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the National School Bus Safety Week, October 17th through 21st of 2022.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion or comments, Mr.
Yes,
Smith?
sir. We don't want the bus drivers to feel left out. So there's going to be something very special. I know you were waiting for that, Ms. Bryant. We're going to do something very special for the bus drivers. And Mr. Denny, you want to tell a little bit of what that looks like?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Smith. Good evening again, Board. We should have a pretty good time this coming Friday. I think anyone that's ever spent time on a bus or time around bus drivers understands that's a pretty challenging job. You got a lot of kids behind you, you've got traffic in front of you, and you're driving an 18,000-pound vehicle at the same time. So they do a good job taking care of our young people, and we wanted to really, I guess, love on them a bit this Friday and throw a cookout. So we're going to have a nice spread from 11 to 1 at the transportation, right outside the transportation office. Yeah, so we're going to have some good food. It's going to be, let's see, beef hot dogs, beef hamburgers, pulled barbecue chicken, baked beans, coleslaw, macaroni salad, and some desserts that I'm remiss. I'm focused on the meat, so the desserts are escaping me. But we certainly want to invite all of our drivers. We put word out to them last week to come join us. All of our, not just drivers, but all of our transportation team, mechanics, office staff, bus aides. They all have a really critical role to play in making sure our kids get to and from school. And it's the first person and the last person they see every day. So
There'll be a special guest chef. I won't name him, but yeah, he's pretty good.
yeah. So it should be a good time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't want to forget anybody. It takes all of us to make our district what it is, and reading a proclamation, and that's all to it, where we want to go a little bit further. So there you go.
Good idea.
Am I correct? Did I hear that we have some bus drivers in the audience today? Can you stand and be recognized? Love to
Absolutely.
Yes.
recognize all that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think that as a young person, you realize the impact that you make as a bus driver. I remember my bus driver from elementary school, and that's how important it is that every single person really does impact students from the time they
Absolutely.
leave their home to get on that bus. You're the first smile they see. So your energy, whatever energy you bring, that's the energy they're gonna bring through the door. So thank you. I know that you take a lot of grief. I know that some of our parents may have some challenges in communicating with you. We're gonna keep working on them, we'll keep working. But thank you for showing up. Thank you for putting your best foot forward and empowering our young people. So hats off to you.
And if you receive letters from parents, I'd like to read them first. All right. But I just kind of stay consistent.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 9.06, resolution rejecting all offers received at public auction.
Yes, Mr.
Smith.
Birdie and Board. The Board of Education of the Winton City School District met in regular session at 6:30 PM on the 26th day of May, 2022, in the South Campus, Lake Room 1106, 147 Farragut Road, with the following board members: Mr. Birdie, Ms. Deborah Bryant, Ms. Paula Kuhn, Mr. Brandon Smith, and Dr. Viola Johnson. Excuse me. Winton City School District, a resolution rejecting all offers received at public auction, whereas the Board of Education is the owner of certain real property hereinafter described, which is no longer needed for any school purposes, which exceeds $10,000 in value, in which the board has determined to offer the sale of at a public auction pursuant to Ohio law. And whereas the Board of Education held a public auction on August 25th, at which it received written offers, whereas after reviewing the highest bid for each property, the board does not believe that accepting the offers received would be in the best interest of the district. Now therefore be it resolved by the board as following. The board hereby rejects all offers received at the public auction held on August 25th. The Executive Director of Business Affairs is hereby authorized to send written notice of the board's action to the highest bidder for each partial. It is found and determined that all formal section, which is section 2 of the board's concerning or related to the adoption of this resolution, was adopted in an open meeting of this board, and all deliberations of the board or any of its committees that resulted in such formal actions were adopted in meetings open to the public in compliance with all applicable requirements of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution rejecting all offers received at public auction as presented.
I was looking at.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Has been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or comments anyone would like to make?
I just have a question. What are next steps after the offers are rejected?
Thanks again, Mr. Smith, and that's a great question. So, in essence, what the Ohio Revised Code allows us to do, or allows the board and the district to do, is begin to negotiate directly. So the board has options at this point. The district has options. Public auction is required by law. If the board in its judgment feels those offers are not in the best interest of the district, those offers can be rejected, and the board can pursue working directly with a commercial agent, for example, to pursue marketing properties that way, or also negotiate directly with those who did make offers. And of course, Mr. Smith would be the authorized agent on behalf of the board. And I'm happy to support whatever that work looks like, as well as I'm sure Mr. Seymour. I don't want to speak for him, but we stand ready to help support that work.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And in a nutshell, none of the bids we felt are really representative of what the properties are worth. So at this point, that's why the comment was made rejecting these bids. We think it's in the best interest of the district at this point. So.
And I think you make a good point, Mr. Birdie. One of the things that the public definitely understands, when you start talking about selling property, you're only doing it one time.
Right.
You have to maximize your opportunity.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Mr. Denny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Ms. Bryant, Mrs. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next on the agenda is 10.01, the legislative report.
Thank you. I have presented to my board members and the superintendent and treasurer just an update from Ohio School Board Association has some updates of Ohio progress on some legislation. Just a couple points that I thought of interest. I did summarize it, and you can view it and look more comprehensively. And then on your email, it does have the federal information as well, if you wanted to look at that. But the two things that I wanted to point out, there's a change that Ohio has. The State Committee on Computer Science voted to approve adding computer science plan to the curriculum from K to 12 education. That will be an ongoing process. I think, when does it go into effect? Fine, in like 2030, but.
2030.
2030, yeah. But it does employ the importance of computer programming and how we want to institute that in our district for the future. Very briefly, there was a strange bill that was interesting. It said that it removed school districts' ability to conduct raffles, which I thought was rather interesting. But it does allow for 501c. So our booster programs, the music boosters, the athletic boosters, anything as long as it's designated with a 501c PTA, they could still carry on raffles as they might seem necessary. Although it would be in our best interest to make sure that anybody representing Winton Woods was really a 501c, so we don't step on that legislation. I think there's still questions about if that was an intentional. It's rather random, so I thought that was strange. There was another piece too. The Ohio School Report Cards came out, and then the other piece is in Michigan. Superintendent Smith was talking about legislation that talks about cell phone use. And a lot of things that happen in Michigan sometimes will translate over into Ohio. It's nothing in the works yet, but the superintendent did have a comment.
Yeah, we believe that when the conversation comes up, some of the Michigan voters and some of the people that are against this whole idea about cell phones in school, many of them don't have children. And young people are using their cell phones in a variety of ways. You look at any event or any activity that may have taken place, They use it to contact parents, to say the game is over, can you pick me up? Or they use it to say, hey, are you still coming to the PTA program? It's a variety of things, so it's not always negative. As I mentioned before about our principals in the schools, they have done it in such a professional way of handling the cell phone issue that it doesn't clog up the system. Because some young people are using it as their computer. If they forget their Chromebook, the computer becomes the phone. I mean, we all use it. So I don't think it's important for us to get into that battle at this point until it becomes a problem. Yeah, I've spent a lot of my days looking for problems, but I'm not looking for this one, because I don't think this puts us in the right position to start making a lot of restrictions about how young people spend their time. What was the first one you spoke about, Ms. Coon?
I was talking about the computer science
The
piece.
computer science, we have to be very careful about it, because if you've ever had an opportunity to talk to our tech director, she will talk about the importance of computer science. We'd like for kids to have that computer literacy so that they can expand their horizons, and maybe they become coders, and maybe they become programmers. I mean, there's a lot of resources involved with being a computer literate person. So the state is saying that, okay, here's one option where if you go into computer science, we can get rid of some of the arts. Well, we want to keep all of it. We like to keep the arts, and we like to keep computer science intact too, and not make young people make a choice. Why not have both? Why not have all of it? Because you never know what your life may turn into just by the opportunities that are presented in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So the computer science piece is going to keep moving down the path, but having the artistic opportunities as well, I would not like to see that substituted.
True. I like everything for all of our students have all opportunities. And then just so we know, and not to alarm anybody, that's just possibly what Michigan is doing on cell phones. So I don't want to alert or alarm anybody prematurely or anything, but I do encourage our students, don't use your cell phone in class and listen to your teacher. So I'm old fashioned. So that's just my 2 cents if I was in charge of the world. Anyways, but with that, I'm concluded.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ms. Kuhn. Mr. Smith, anything else?
No,
Yes?
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Next is the Great Oaks Career Technical Center report, which I emailed to my fellow board members. I did realize late this afternoon that I forgot to put the spotlight on students report in that email, and that's usually the most important part of that email. So you've got the other documents, the board highlight document, and as well as some of the other stuff that we received from Mr. Snyder, the CEO. And I will send out that spotlight on students report and highlight the Winton Woods students that are in there. And with that, I will conclude my report. Next item on the agenda is 11.01, which is we need to change where we're having some meetings. So we need a motion to change the location of those meetings.
I make a motion to change the location of regular board meetings on October 10th, 2022, and the superintendent briefing at 4 p.m. and October 10th, 2022, work session at 6:30 p.m. from the intermediate building at 825 Waycross Road to the community building, room 105, 8 Enfield Street, Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any comments or questions? We found that was a much better room than where we were, so we really
Yes.
like that room.
Is that a permanent change to
I don't-
that location, or is it just for this one specific
It'll-
meeting?
Oh, for now.
It'll be just for that
Because
one
the
for
other
now.
room is
Yeah, I know,
it's just
yeah.
under
Okay.
construction.
No, that's good.
All right, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Ms. Bryant?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. That vote passes. Next on the agenda is just comments from members of the board. Ms. Bryant, would you like to go to first?
I would, actually. I would like to say congratulations. We have a young person that has been nominated for Student Athlete of the Week, and I was trying to find that email. So if you have not done so already, please vote for our student athlete, and I apologize because my fingers are clicking on the wrong, there we go. So we have a young man by the name of Trey Cornice, and he's been nominated for the Tri-State Football Player of the Week. So please, if you haven't, please vote. He, during the recent game on Friday, he carried the ball 18 times for a total of 343 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, and the victory of Whitney
He
was
broke my old record.
over Anderson 62-31 for homecoming. So I don't know about you guys, but that's a great way to have a homecoming game. So congratulations,
Is
Warrior.
that 41 points in the third quarter?
Yeah, good old Trey, thanks.
So I'd like to say congratulations to him and the rest of the team and the band and the cheerleaders for our awesome homecoming on Friday.
And they are undefeated at this point
Oh, and we're also number 90 in the country,
in the nation.
in the nation. Yes,
Yeah.
nation. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Kuhn, would you go next?
Echo congratulations in order to the football team. It's a great homecoming. There was a parade, a lot of festivities, a lot of things to celebrate here at Winton Woods. I want to encourage our parents to look at their midterm report cards or the reports for their students. Kind of consult with their students, their teachers. If you haven't gone and set up Spectrum, please look for that ability to do, so that you can go online and look at your students' grades all the time. Because really, the main reason, and all of these supplemental things are to round out our student, but really, the real main purpose is for education, and to make sure children can read and write and do all the things that are going to benefit them in the future. So keep your grades up. So,
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
It was exciting weekend. Yes, it was. It was my first homecoming as a board member. I still marched with the band, of course.
Yes, you did.
But it was very exciting. Just the energy in the district, Forest Park, Green Hills, Springfield Township, in our subset of Wyoming. It was exciting. So I appreciate all the alumni that came out. It was great to see a lot of old faces. And I don't mean that like you looked old, but old faces to the district. You know, you haven't been here in a while.
You were
So
looking at
we encourage you to come back and be a part. And it was nice to see all the parents out with their students, with their kids, just interacting with the teachers that came out as well. I got to see the principals. I was on my way back to the school, and I seen Mr. Martin running to the football game. I was like, Mr. Martin, where you going? I had to return the vehicles for the parade, but I can't miss the game. So once again, it speaks to our principals who go over and beyond, because I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah, we got all these cars, and somebody had to take them back. We can't pay for these. Can we, Randy?
No.
Okay. So, that was very important. But, yeah, I appreciate the little things that our principals do. Just, some of the things that we take for granted, making sure that our district is well taken care of. So thank you to all the principals out there, assistant principals, and everybody who works with them in the office day in and day out for everything that you do for our district. It's much appreciated. And go Warriors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Superintendent Smith?
Yes, I know we've had a lot of positive conversations about what's happening in our district, but I'd like for people to just keep in mind the sensitivity of what one of our neighboring districts just dealt with. I mean, that had to be big. That's a very serious situation. And so just a phone call, just if you know people in Princeton, just to say, hey, how are you doing? Are things going okay? Because it takes a lot to recover from something like that, even though it was a hoax, but it was real. It was real at that time. And I've reached out to Superintendent Burton, just letting him know if there's anything that we can do to support their work, we will do it. Because I think that we have to have a shared attribute. At the end of the day, all of these children are ours, and not just the ones that attend our district.
Thank you. Mr. Seymour?
No, thank you.
No, nothing? Okay. I'll echo the homecoming parade. That was just fantastic to see all the people lined all up and down Waycross and across Winton Road and up here into the parking lot at the high school. It was pretty neat to see that many people come out for that parade. I know a lot of the little kids were there because of the candy that was being thrown, but I saw them walking around like they had a Halloween or something and huge bags of candy. So thank you for what you're doing for the principals in the transportation department. I think that's important that we recognize those people for what they do, because they do a lot of great work for our students every day. So, and with that, I will conclude my report. There is a need for an executive session, and normally we do not come back from executive session and vote on something, but this time we are going to have to come back from executive session and vote on something. So You're all welcome to stay. I can't tell you how long the executive session will last, but you are welcome to stay if you would like. With that, I need a motion to
Sure.
go into executive session.
Sure, I would like to make a motion for executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, and to negotiate with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
A motion, need a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Any further comment, discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Ms. Bryant,
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, we will be moving to another room, correct?
Yeah.
And you all can stay. All right, we're coming back from executive session. Randy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye. We're present.
Ms. Bryant,
Present.
Ms. Kuhn,
Present?
Mr. Smith.
I am here.
And we're back in at 8:14.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. With that, we will move to agenda item 13.02, the resolution conditionally approving a tax increment financing exemption of the city of Forest Park, Ohio. Motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution conditionally approving a tax increment financing exemption of the city of Forest Park, Ohio as presented.
Okay. Ms. Kuhn, will you read?
Okay.
And then we'll second after you read it.
This is a resolution conditionally approving a tax increment financing exemption for the city of Forest Park, Ohio. It says, whereas pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5709.40, the Board of Education of the Winton City School District, the board, received written notice dated August 26, 2022, of the intent of the city of Forest Park, Ohio, to adopt an ordinance declaring improvements to certain parcels of real estate located in the city and identified in the notice and city ordinance to be a public purpose. And whereas the exempted property is more fully described in the notice and city ordinance attached hereto as Exhibit A, and whereas the intent of declaring such property to be a public purpose is to provide for the exemption, the TIF exemption, of up to 100% of the value of such improvements for a period commencing on or after the effective date of the adoption of the city ordinance for a period of 30 years. And whereas the city intends to make certain public infrastructure improvements as identified in the notice and the city ordinance that will benefit to serve the exempted property. And whereas the city intends to require the owners of the exempted property pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5709.42 to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes to be used to pay for the public infrastructure improvements identified in the notice and city ordinance. And whereas the notice was provided to the district at least 45 days, business days, prior to the date the city indicated it intended to adopt the city ordinance as required by the revised code 5709.40, D, Section 2, forgive me if I'm not saying that correctly, and the board wishes to provide the city with its conditional approval of the TIF exemption, with the exception that a mutually agreeable compensation agreement can be negotiated. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Education of the Winton City School District, Section 1, that the board hereby approves the TIF exemption of 100% of the value of improvements to the exempted property for a period of 30 years pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5709.40, on the condition that the city and the board negotiate an agreement for mutually agreeable compensation. If the city and board fail to enter into an agreement for mutually agreeable compensation by December 31st, 2022, this board's conditional approval of the TIF exemption shall be withdrawn and be considered a disapproval of the TIF exemption at this time. Section 2, the treasurer shall immediately certify a copy of this resolution to the city. Section 3 states that it is found and determined that all formal actions of the Board of Education concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were adopted in an open meeting of this Board of Education, that all deliberations of this Board of Education and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public, in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Is there anything else on there that
Thank
I
you.
should read?
Thank you, Ms. Kuhn. We'll need a second.
Second.
Okay, Deborah, second. Any discussion or
Thank you.
comments? I just want to make one real quick one, just to make sure that it was heard the way Paula said it, that this is conditional approval with the expectation that we can come to a mutually agreeable compensation agreement. So that's what this does. So thank you very much, Paula. No other comments? Mr. Seymour, would you call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Ms. Bryant,
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
All right, that resolution passes. And with that, I don't believe we have any further business, do we? Anybody have anything? No? All right, with that, we will call the Winton Woods School Board meeting adjourned.